Hi, this is Jason, and I'm going to be showing you how to run the demo for the Cross Reality Desktop's teacher interface version. If you want to run the student version, that's a different thing. It involves a headset, etc. So, just a quick overview of the hardware components you'll require. Obviously, you'll need a desktop. It is preferred if you have two monitors, but it is not necessary. You'll, of course, need a mouse and keyboard. And then there's the Tobii eye tracker and the Leap hand sensor. This is a Tobii i5. I believe the 4C works as well, but if you have access to the 5, just use that one. For the Leap, this is the original Leap hand tracker. I have not tested it with the 2, but I believe it requires a different software set, so it probably won't work. But I have tested it with the 3DI, and that works, so, just bust out the old Leap. It should be fine. Now a note about the software that you'll require. So this has to be opened in Unity version 2019.4.11. There's not a build because of some technical reasons, but as long as you have that version, it should be fine. You will also need all the drivers and stuff for the Tobii eye tracker. So, for example, the Tobii Experience app is what allows us to do calibration. You may want to do calibration before your user steps in which case there isn't like a separate, a thing that can be launched from Unity. So we'd have to just come into Tobii Experience, click on the little name, and then hit Improve My Calibration. As you can see, it'll show me my eyes. This is a pretty neat thing for people to see in itself, so, if you're just trying to give a demo of something with desktop eye tracking, then it's pretty cool to show them this as well. You can't see it, but I am looking at each dot until it explodes. Right, then it'll tell you that calibration is successful. If it wasn't successful, then maybe the person was just moving their head around too much. There could be some things. And then you can go back to that settings menu and turn on Preview My Gaze and see if it's roughly correct. You should be able to see my gaze cursor flitting about the screen, and it's pretty neat to see. Unfortunately, it will not work when the Tobii Experience app is not in focus. So now that you have everything that you need to run it, let's talk about the purpose of the experiment and the software in general. So the idea behind the software in general is that we want to be able to connect students and teachers or anybody who wants to give a presentation to an audience through a virtual space, but not everybody wants to use a VR headset every time. Some people elect to use desktops for reasons such as familiarity, comfort, etc. But we want to give them just as good an experience as the user in VR, and we want to give the other users who are in VR just as accurate a representation of what their body is doing through their avatar as you would get if you were moving around in a hand-tracked avatar. So we built several types of interfaces, and now that's what I'm going to be showing. So now I'll be giving you sort of a rundown of the basics of the system just when you launch it up, so you kind of know what's going on here. So when we hit play, we're going to be met with this little lobby menu. I know there's kind of a lot of options here, but there's really only a couple of them that matter. So all of the stuff in the start settings, these first three fields, don't worry about them. Teacher mode and student mode should be self-explanatory. If you're demoing the teacher version, you want it to be in teacher mode. And then this will control which of the interfaces you're using. We're going to start out with PPT because it's the simplest. And then this drop down doesn't actually control anything. This button doesn't actually control anything, so you can just leave this as cardinal and unchecked. Don't worry about this generate sequence file. And then here, this you can set to whatever set of slides you'd like. There are 9 built in. The ones that say small in front of them are going to have some text instructions on what to say, and I recommend doing that just to give the demoer a little something extra to do. So I'll say small dove. And then you don't need to worry about any of this stuff because that's just for the networked version. Okay, once we've done that, we are ready to hit host room and it'll load up everything. So in the PPT version, we get the most basic of the interfaces. Imagine it like the presenter's interface from PowerPoint. So here we see the slides on the right. We see the notes or instructions on the left here, and we see the students in the room represented by cutouts down here. And then in the bottom right, there's a quick reminder on the controls, which will be nice for your demo person. So essentially, we want someone to be able to look at students, to draw on the board, and to point at the board. So each interface gives a slightly different way of achieving each of these, but generally it's going to be the same. Like if you want to point at the board, you hold the right mouse button and you move the cursor across the board. If you want to draw, you just hold the left cursor. If you want to look, that's the thing that's most different between each interface. So here, you just take the mouse and drag it across each person's face. Now I know you can't see anything moving because the PPT interface doesn't show the person their avatar. But if you can see in my little webcam video on the second screen, this is why I advise having the second screen, because you can go in and show what the avatar is looking at. So here, he's looking at the user called user. So if I bring my camera to their perspective, look at that. Looks like he's looking right at me. Okay, that's it for the PPT interface. Pretty simple. Now let's go over some of the others. The next one is going to be top-down. This one, as the name implies, gives you a top-down aerial look at each of at the room. Here, instead of having you interact with this awkwardly placed PowerPoint up here, we recreate the slides here, and this is the interactable portion with the mouse. So you'll see as I right-click and try to point around at the doves or whatever, the avatar, and you can see it is actually doing that pointing, and it looks pretty nice. I can control looking at the students by, again, hovering over their little representation with my mouse, and I'll actually switch to that second screen. Now you can see, I'm going to look at that guy on the left. I'm going to look at that guy on the right. I'm going to point at the board. I'm going to circle the dove's head, etc. So you can show them stuff like this if you'd like, and it'll show them different ways that we can achieve the same kind of thing. Also, if they want to go through the slides, they can also hit space and it will advance to the next text piece. This is to kind of simulate giving a presentation. So I might say, the mourning dove is named for its sad, almost owl-like coos. Adults vary in size from 9 to 13 inches, and then it'll give me a template of where to draw. Males can be distinguished by the bluish color on their necks, and it'll tell me where to point. while the females are a more even tan brown color throughout. And then it'll tell me to look at the student who's raising their hand, and then it moves on. So that's kind of one option for what you can do for a demo if you want to give them something to actively do. Okay, now let's look at one that's completely different. This is the CDesk interface. This is the interface that is most similar to traditional cross-reality desktop applications. What they usually try to do is replicate the VR experience by giving you a first-person perspective that you can control kind of like a first-person shooter. So here we have one additional control, and that's the middle mouse button. The middle mouse button will drag the camera around, just like you would in a first-person game. And the mouse clicks still handle the same way. I can right-click on the board, and left-click to draw. I can move my avatar by rotating just strictly to face them. The avatar will always be looking at this little ball in the center. And in fact, we can take a look at what that looks like from this guy's perspective. So as I am moving around, here's what moving the camera looks like. Here's what drawing on the board looks like. Notice it's a little more stiff. Okay, so you get it. Now we'll move to our main contribution here, the SDesk interface, or the sensors-based interface. So here we're utilizing audio input from the microphone, we're using eye tracking, and we're using hand tracking. So as you notice, as I talk into the mic, it's modulating the mouth of the guy a little bit. I have to get really close in order for it to really work. Then I can bring my hands up, and you can see the guy's little hands move. People tend to like kind of just waving their hands around, so that's a fun bit for demos. And then this is a little more subtle, but as I am looking at the board, my character is looking at the podium, at where that spot on the board would be. And if I look up, my character should look out into the audience. And if I look to the side, they'll look over to the side. If I look to the other side, they'll look to the other side. And it should track my blinking as well. So I'm blinking, I'm open. Blinking, I'm open. Blinking, open. You can play around with it however you like. So you could have them go through this as well. Maybe do, you know, a couple of reads, have them draw, have them point, have them look. The looking can be tricky. There we go. But that's the gist of it for the interfaces. I recommend that you play around with them kind of at your leisure and get a grasp for what they're like so that you can be ready to show somebody else, which is what we'll go to next. So now I'm going to be showing you what a demo of this project might look like. So I have my demonstration assistant here. As I said, the demo is going to start with just a brief explanation of the motivation behind the project. So for example, I might say, this is me talking to you. So we saw during the pandemic that a lot of presentation-based things like conferences and lectures went remote. And one solution that people had to that was to put these presentations in a virtual space where people could join in VR and interact with each other as if they were in a real classroom. But this offers several problems for presenters. So in the real scenario, a lot of people actually wound up converting back to their desktops for reasons like comfort, familiarity, etc. So we figured that if this is going to be a thing, we should be designing what we call cross-reality desktop interfaces that will allow the desktop users to interface with the VR immersed users in a way that's more natural and more designed for the presentation purpose. Okay, something like that. Doesn't need to be that exactly, doesn't need to be that long. Just kind of use your best judgment on how to do it. So now I will fire up the demo just by hitting the play button. And what I'm going to do here is, since they've probably never used the system before, I'm going to click this little checkbox that says Start with Tutorial. This will give them 2 slides in which they'll kind of get some instructions on how to practice with it. These instructions were given to people who did the actual experiment that we did with this. Actually, first, I should probably have you go through calibration. So I'll launch the Tobii Experience app. I'll click Improve Calibration, and this will let you calibrate the eye tracker for your eyes. This is usually pretty cool to people as well. They just kind of like seeing, you know, the eye tracker in action. Try not to move your head too much while doing the calibration. Look at the dots just with your eyes. All right, now that we've calibrated, going back to the Unity window, doesn't really matter which of the slide sets I pick, but I'm going to start her off with the CDesk interface because that's sort of the conventional one that we're trying to improve. So to give them an idea of the baseline, we'll let them go with that one first. So I'll hit host room. Now I'll tell my demo participant that I'm going to ask you to kind of give a demo presentation just for a few slides. So you'll see some instructions on the billboard. It'll tell you how to interface with the interface, what mouse buttons to use, etc. And yeah, you can go at it and let me know if you have any questions. Mm-hmm. So just so you know, this is the standard conventional approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay. When you see like text like this, please read out loud, then press space on it. Move your camera using middle mouse. Okay, got it. Okay. Note that the podium screen shows a mirror of the board, but is not interactive. Yep. You see text in brackets, perform the described tasks. Okay. Point at the noted spot on the board to point, face the board, then right click on the intended area. The blue spot?
The spot that little pointer's pointing to. The bottom left of the orange square.
Since you're raising hands, should you rest this, rotate the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, draw a circle in the center of the triangle. Left mouse to click. Okay, okay. Cool. Good. Let's try that again. Look at Gunther by rotating the camera to the center of his face. Gunther. Point at the center of the circle. Boop. Roughly fill in the rectangle. You don't have to match exactly. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I tried to do that one. Okay, I'm ready now.
All right. Now, while you're doing this, if you could also look at this camera layout, this is going to show you kind of what your avatar looks like to the other students were they actually connected. But what your avatar is going to look like to the other students when you connect to them online, and how it's going to be animated.
Cool. The cardinal is the state bird of a whopping 7 states, making it the most common state bird, followed by the western meadowlark, representing 6 states. The cardinal is a small variety of bird. They tend to be around 9 inches long, or slightly larger than a sparrow. Point. The males are highly recognizable by their bright red plumage over almost its entire body. Draw. While the females are comprised mostly of muted brown with specks of red accents. Look.
All right. And I think after about, those 3 slides, they'll probably get it. So unless they really want to continue, you can just kind of cut it there.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I'll say, if I can get the mouse, I'll bring us to the interface that we designed, which takes advantage of some additional sensors. So we'll be doing pretty much the same thing. We're still going to start with tutorial, and note I've changed this to SDesk, and we'll go to host room. Just make sure that it's okay. Now note that the avatar looks a little funky. The head is kind of off the shoulders. To fix that, you'll just hit C, and that'll calibrate the center position. Okay, I think it's actually because it's picking up my head. Okay, now that it's picking up her head, I press C, and now if you notice, you can kind of move your head around, and your avatar matches that movement. If you blink, the avatar matches that. And if you raise your hands above this little bar, it'll match your hand movements as well. The hand movements aren't required for this demo, but it's just a nice thing that we have in it. So now you can do the same thing and get a feel for how everything feels like in this interface.
You are now using the SDesk interface. When you see text like this, please read it aloud. Then press the spacebar when done. When you see text in the brackets, do not read it, but perform the described action. Please point at the bottom left corner. Look at the student's, okay, look at the student's face icon. Got it. Draw a circle. Very good, let's try it again. Look at Gunther. I'm looking at you. Point. I am pointing. Perfect. The cardinal is the state bird of a whopping 7 states, making it the most common state bird, followed by the western meadowlark, representing 6 states. The cardinal is a small variety of bird. They tend to be around 9 inches long or slightly longer than a sparrow. Point. The males are highly recognizable by their bright red plumage over almost its entire body. Draw. While the females are comprised mostly of a muted brown with specks of red accents. Looking.
All right. And again, unless they really want to, you can stop them there. If you want to show them the other interfaces, then you can, but I mean, these are the most interesting because it's the baseline and then the most unique one that we've developed. So after this, you can kind of ask them their thoughts. You can tell them some of the results of the experiment. For example, as you probably noticed, now I'm talking to you again.
Oh.
As you probably noticed, it's a little quicker to do things like look around when you're in the when you're in this interface versus when you had to drag the mouse around.
Mm-hmm.
The snapping of the eyes to the characters to make your avatar look at them went a little quicker, and you get like a straight-on view of the board. So for this reason,
it's much easier.
Good. Like, glad you agree.
Okay.
So for this reason, a lot of people preferred this, and we found some subjective usability metrics that it rated higher than the conventional interface. So that's it. If you have any questions, well, I try not to ask me, but if you have to, I'll be around for a while. But who knows? Maybe I'll be dead by the time it goes out, or that you see this.